Donkey Lady Bridge in San Antonio, Texas, feared locally as Paranormal Haunted Vortex Chapter 1. The sun was setting over San Antonio, casting long shadows across the city's historic streets. The orange and pink hues of the sky contrasted sharply with the darkening silhouettes of the buildings, creating an almost surreal atmosphere. It was in this twilight setting that Alex stepped off the bus, his shoes clicking against the pavement as he made his way through the familiar streets of his hometown. He hadn't been back in years, having left for college and then a job in the city. But the death of his grandmother had called him back, and as he walked, memories of his childhood flooded back. The laughter of friends, the scent of his grandmother's cooking, the stories they'd tell each other on long summer nights. As he approached a local bar, he heard his name being called out. Turning, he saw a group of his old friends sitting outside, beers in hand, laughing and joking around. "Alex, is that really you?" shouted one of them, a tall guy with a beard named Mike. Alex grinned, walking over and embracing each of them. "It's been too long," he said, taking a seat. The group caught up, reminiscing about old times and filling Alex in on what had been happening in town since he'd been gone. But as the night wore on, the conversation took a darker turn. "Have you heard about the Donkey Lady Bridge?" asked Lisa, a petite woman with dark hair. Alex frowned. "The what?" Mike leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "It's this old bridge on Applewhite Road. They say it's haunted by the ghost of a woman who looks like a donkey. She's supposed to be really angry and vengeful." Alex laughed. "Come on, you guys still believe in that old legend?" Lisa shook her head. "It's not just a legend, Alex. People have seen her, heard her. There are stories of cars breaking down near the bridge, of people being chased by a shadowy figure, of eerie cries in the night." Alex raised an eyebrow. "Seriously?" Mike nodded. "I've been there. It's creepy as hell. You can feel the energy, I don't know, the presence." Alex looked around at his friends, all of whom were nodding in agreement. Okay, he said, holding up his hands. "So what's the story?" Lisa took a deep breath. "Back in the 1950s, there was a woman who lived near the bridge. Her husband was a real piece of work, abusive and violent. One night, in a fit of rage, he set their house on fire with her and their kids inside. She tried to save them, but the flames were too intense. She managed to escape, but not before the fire had disfigured her. Her fingers and toes had melted together, giving her hooves and her face. It was elongated, like a donkey. The townspeople, horrified by her appearance, chased her away, and she took refuge near the bridge. They say she's been there ever since, mourning her children and seeking revenge on anyone who comes near." Alex shivered, despite the warm night air. That's horrible." Mike nodded. "It is. And the worst part is, it's all true. My grandpa was a firefighter back then. He was one of the first on the scene. He told me the story when I was a kid, and I've never forgotten it." The group sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the story pressing down on them. Then, breaking the tension, Mike grinned. "So, how about it, Alex? Fancy a visit to the bridge? Midnight tonight?" Alex hesitated. He wasn't one to believe in ghosts or legends, but the story had shaken him. And yet, there was a part of him, a curious, adventurous part, that wanted to see the bridge for himself. "All right," he said finally. "I'm in." The group cheered, clinking their glasses together. But as the night wore on and the hour of their adventure drew closer, Alex couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him. What if the stories were true? What if the donkey lady was real? And what if she was waiting for them at the bridge? As midnight approached, Alex and his friends made their way to Applewhite Road, the headlights of their cars cutting through the darkness. The bridge loomed ahead, an old, rickety structure that looked like it had seen better days. The group parked their cars and approached the bridge on foot, the only sound the chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. They stood at the entrance of the bridge, looking out into the darkness. "Well," said Mike, "here we are." Alex took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing heart. "Let's do this." And with that, the group stepped onto the bridge, not knowing what awaited them on the other side. Chapter 2. The San Antonio Public Library was a grand old building, its stone walls and tall windows a testament to the city's rich history. As Alex pushed open the heavy wooden doors, the familiar scent of old books and polished wood greeted him. The library had always been a sanctuary for him, a place of solace and discovery. Today, it was a place of answers. He made his way to the local history section, his eyes scanning the shelves for any books or documents related to the Donkey Lady legend. As he searched, he stumbled upon a collection of old newspaper clippings, yellowed with age. One headline caught his eye: "Tragic House Fire Claims Lives of 2 Children." The date was from the 1950s. Alex carefully unfolded the brittle paper and began to read. The article detailed a horrific fire that had engulfed a family home on the outskirts of San Antonio. The mother, severely burned while trying to save her children, had survived but was left horribly disfigured. The article went on to describe the community's shock and horror, but there was no mention of the Donkey Lady or the bridge. As he continued to sift through the clippings, another piece of paper caught his attention. It was a diary entry, handwritten Chapter 3. The first visit the night was dark and still, with only the faintest sliver of a moon casting a dim light over the landscape. The chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl were the only sounds that broke the silence. Alex's heart raced as he and his friends made their way towards the infamous Donkey Lady Bridge. The stories and legends he'd heard were fresh in his mind, and every rustling leaf or snapping twig made him jump. Mike, always the bravest of the group, led the way, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. Lisa and Jake followed closely behind, their faces pale and eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. Alex brought up the rear, his senses on high alert. As they approached the bridge, a cold wind began to blow, sending shivers down Alex's spine. The old wooden structure loomed ahead, its dark silhouette standing out against the night sky. They paused at the entrance, the weight of the legends and stories pressing down on them. "Are we really doing this?" Lisa whispered, her voice shaky. Mike nodded, his face determined. "We've come this far. We can't turn back now." Taking a deep breath, the group stepped onto the bridge. The wood creaked under their feet, and the wind howled through the gaps in the planks. They walked slowly, their flashlights scanning the area for any sign of the Donkey Lady. Suddenly, a distant cry pierced the night. It was a mournful, haunting sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The group froze, their eyes darting around in search of the source. "Did you hear that?" Jake whispered, his voice trembling. Before anyone could answer, the sound of hoof-like footsteps echoed through the night. They were slow and deliberate, getting louder and closer with each step. "There!" Lisa exclaimed, pointing towards the other end of the bridge. A shadowy figure was slowly making its way towards them. It was hard to make out any details, but the elongated shape of its head and the way it moved gave credence to the legends. Panic set in, and the group began to back away, their flashlights shaking in their hands. But as they retreated, Alex felt a cold, clammy hand touch his shoulder. He turned, his eyes meeting those of the shadowy figure. They were filled with pain and sorrow, and for a brief moment, Alex felt a connection, a deep understanding of the tragedy that had befallen the donkey lady. But the moment was short-lived. The figure let out a guttural scream, its face contorting in rage. The group didn't need any further prompting. They turned and ran, their footsteps echoing loudly as they fled the bridge. They didn't stop until they reached their cars, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. They piled in, tires screeching as they sped away from the bridge and the horrors it held. No one spoke on the drive back to town. The weight of what they'd experienced hung heavily in the air. When they finally reached the safety of their homes, they said their goodbyes, each lost in their own thoughts. Alex lay in bed that night, the events of the evening playing over and over in his mind. The touch of the cold hand, the sorrowful eyes, the guttural scream. He knew he'd never forget that night, and he also knew that he'd never set foot on the Donkey Lady Bridge again. But as he drifted off to sleep, a single thought nagged at him. What if there was more to the story? What if the Donkey Lady wasn't just a vengeful spirit, but a lost soul in search of peace? And what if he was the one to help her find it? With that thought, Alex drifted off to sleep, the seeds of a plan forming in his mind. Chapter 4. The connection. The night was restless for Alex. As he lay in bed, the haunting memories of the bridge visit played in his mind like a broken record. The eerie cries, the chilling touch, and the shadowy figure all seemed too real to be just a figment of his imagination. But as exhaustion took over, Alex finally drifted into a deep slumber. In his dream, he found himself standing outside a quaint wooden house, surrounded by tall trees. The night was calm, with a gentle breeze rustling the leaves. But as he approached the house, he could hear the faint cries of children and the desperate pleas of a woman. Pushing the door open, he was met with a horrifying sight. Flames engulfed the house, and amidst the roaring fire, he could see the silhouette of a woman, her face distorted in pain and anguish. The flames seemed to dance around her, molding her features, elongating her face, and fusing her fingers and toes. The cries grew louder, more desperate, and as Alex reached out to help, the woman turned to him, her eyes filled with tears. "Save them," she whispered, her voice filled with sorrow. Alex jolted awake, drenched in sweat. The dream felt so real, so vivid. As he tried to shake off the remnants of the nightmare, he felt a stinging sensation on his arm. Pulling back the covers, he gasped in horror. There, on his forearm, were distinct hoof-like marks, red and inflamed. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks. The dream, the touch, the marks, they were all connected. The spirit of the Donkey Lady had reached out to him, and he felt an inexplicable bond with her. Sitting up, Alex tried to process everything. The legend, the stories, the visit to the bridge, and now the dream, it all pointed to one thing. He had a deep connection to the spirit of the donkey lady. But why? Why him? And what did she want? The answer seemed clear. She was a lost soul, trapped in a cycle of pain and sorrow, seeking peace and closure. And for some reason, Alex felt compelled to help her. He couldn't explain it, but he felt a responsibility, a duty to put her spirit to rest. Determined, Alex got out of bed and powered up his laptop. He began researching rituals, ceremonies, and ways to communicate with spirits. Hours flew by as he delved deep into the world of the supernatural, learning about the different methods used by shamans, mediums, and spiritualists to connect with the other side. He took notes, bookmarked pages, and even reached out to local experts for advice. As the sun began to rise, Alex had a plan. He would conduct a séance, a ritual to communicate with the spirit of the donkey lady. He would need the help of his friends, some specific items, and a lot of courage. But he was determined. He felt a deep connection to the spirit, and he knew he was the key to helping her find peace. Gathering his notes, Alex made a list of everything he would need. Candles, incense, a medium, and most importantly, the support of his friends. He knew it wouldn't be easy, and there was no guarantee of success. But he had to try. For the donkey lady, for the children, and for himself. As the day wore on, Alex made the necessary preparations. He reached out to his friends, explaining his plan and seeking their support. They were hesitant at first, the memories of the bridge visit still fresh in their minds. But seeing Alex's determination and conviction, they agreed to help. The stage was set. The ritual would take place the following night, under the full moon, at the very bridge where they had encountered the spirit. Alex knew the risks, but he was ready. He felt a deep connection to the spirit, and he was determined to help her find peace, no matter the cost. Chapter 5. The séance. The night was clear, with the full moon casting a silvery glow over the landscape. The chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl added to the eerie atmosphere. The bridge loomed ahead, its dark silhouette standing out against the moonlit sky. Alex and his friends gathered near the entrance, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. Mike had brought a foldable table and chairs, which they set up in a circle. On the table, Alex placed the candles, incense, and other items he had gathered for the séance. Lisa, always the practical one, had brought blankets and jackets, anticipating the cold night ahead. Jake, despite his initial reservations, had agreed to be the medium, having had some experience with spiritual communication in the past. Once everything was set up, the group took their seats, their hands joined together in a circle. Alex took a deep breath, his heart racing. "Are we ready?" he asked, looking around at his friends. Mike nodded, his face determined. "Let's do this." Jake closed his eyes, taking a few deep breaths to center himself. "Everyone, focus on the spirit of the donkey lady. Picture her in your mind, and send her your energy, your intention to communicate." The group followed Jake's instructions, their minds focused on the spirit. The candles flickered, casting dancing shadows on the ground. The incense filled the air with a sweet, calming scent. After what felt like an eternity, Jake's voice broke the silence. "She's here," he whispered, his voice trembling. "She's with us." A cold wind began to blow, sending shivers down everyone's spine. The atmosphere grew heavy, charged with energy. Alex could feel the presence of the spirit, her pain, her sorrow, her longing. She wants to communicate, Jake continued, his voice filled with awe. She's showing me images, memories. The fire, the children, the pain. She's lost, trapped, seeking closure. Alex took a deep breath, gathering his courage. We want to help you, he said, addressing the spirit. Tell us what you need. The wind howled, the candles flickered, and then, a voice, soft and mournful, filled the air. My children, it whispered. I need to be with my children. The group exchanged glances, the weight of the spirit's request pressing down on them. We promise to help you, Alex said, his voice filled with determination. We will find a way to reunite you with your children. The spirit let out a sigh, a sound filled with relief and gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. But be careful. There's another side to me, a vengeful side. She's angry, hurt, seeking revenge. You must be careful. The group nodded, taking in the spirit's warning. They knew the risks, but they were determined to help. The séance continued for a while longer, with the spirit sharing more memories, more pain, more sorrow. But eventually, the energy began to wane, and the connection was lost. The group sat in silence for a moment, processing everything they had experienced. The weight of their mission, the responsibility they had taken on, pressed down on them. But they were determined. They would find a way to reunite the spirit with her children, no matter the cost. As they packed up their things and made their way back to their cars, Alex couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Fear, determination, hope. The journey ahead would be challenging, but he was ready. He had made a promise, and he intended to keep it. Chapter 6. The clues. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Alex's room, casting a warm glow over the scattered papers and books on his desk. He had spent the entire night researching, trying to find any information about the donkey lady's children and their burial sites. The séance had given him a renewed sense of purpose, and he was determined to keep his promise. As he sifted through old town records and newspaper clippings, his eyes landed on a faded map. It was a map of San Antonio from the early 1900s, and as he studied it, he noticed something intriguing. There, marked with a small cross, were the burial sites of the children. They were located in a small cemetery on the outskirts of town, a place that had long been forgotten. Excited, Alex decided to visit the cemetery. He hoped that by finding the graves, he could help the spirits of the children find peace and reunite them with their mother. But as he made his way to the location marked on the map, he was met with a surprise. The cemetery was no longer there. In its place stood a modern housing development, with rows of identical houses and manicured lawns. Confused, Alex approached a nearby construction worker. "Excuse me," he began. "I'm looking for an old cemetery that used to be here." "Do you know anything about it?" The worker looked up, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Oh, you mean the old burial ground?" "Yeah. They moved the graves a few years back when they started this project. I think they relocated them to the new cemetery on the other side of town." Alex's heart sank. The graves had been moved, and he had no idea where to find them. But he wasn't about to give up. He thanked the worker and made his way to the new cemetery, hoping to find some clue, some indication of where the children were buried. As he wandered through the rows of headstones, he felt an eerie sense of being watched. The air grew cold, and a thick fog began to roll in, obscuring his vision. He could hear faint whispers, the sound of children's laughter, and the distant cries of a woman. It was as if the spirits were guiding him, leading him to the graves. Following the sounds, Alex finally came upon a small, secluded area of the cemetery. There, surrounded by tall trees and overgrown bushes, were 3 headstones. They were old and weathered, but he could still make out the names of the children. Relief washed over him. He had found them. But as he knelt down to pay his respects, he noticed something strange. The ground around the graves was disturbed, as if someone had recently dug them up. Confused, Alex began to investigate, and as he dug deeper, he made a chilling discovery. The graves were empty. A sense of dread filled him. The spirits of the children were lost, just like their mother. They had been separated, their resting places disturbed, and now they were trapped, unable to find peace. Determined to help, Alex began his search anew. He reached out to local historians, visited archives, and even consulted with mediums and spiritualists. Along the way, he encountered strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, mysterious shadows, and eerie voices calling out to him. It was as if the spirits were trying to communicate, to guide him. After weeks of searching, Alex finally found a lead. An old town record mentioned the relocation of the graves and hinted at a possible location. Armed with this new information, Alex set out to find the final resting place of the children. The journey was long and arduous, filled with challenges and obstacles. But with each step, Alex felt a growing sense of purpose, a determination to keep his promise and reunite the spirits with their mother. As he finally stood before the graves, a sense of peace washed over him. He had done it. He had found the children. And as he knelt down to pay his respects, he felt a gentle touch on his shoulder. Turning, he saw the spirit of the donkey lady, her face no longer filled with pain and sorrow, but with gratitude and love. The spirits were finally at peace, reunited at last. And as Alex made his way back to town, he knew that he had played a small part in their journey, helping them find closure and finally rest in peace. Chapter 7. The encounter. The sun was setting over San Antonio, casting long shadows that stretched across the city. Alex had just returned from his journey to find the graves of the donkey lady's children. He felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing that he had fulfilled his promise to help the spirits find peace. But there was one thing he hadn't anticipated, the encounter that awaited him. As he entered his room, exhaustion weighed heavily on him. He closed the door behind him and sank onto his bed, closing his eyes for a moment of respite. However, he was soon jolted awake by an icy breeze that seemed to seep through the walls. It was as if the temperature in the room had dropped dramatically. Alex's heart raced as he scanned the room, looking for the source of the sudden chill. His gaze fell upon a figure standing at the foot of his bed, a figure that sent shivers down his spine. It was the donkey lady, but not the sorrowful, mournful spirit he had encountered before. This was different. This was the vengeful side she had warned them about. The spirit's eyes bore into Alex's soul, filled with anger and accusation. She pointed an accusatory finger at him. "You disturbed my rest," she hissed, her voice cold and menacing. Alex's mind raced as he tried to find the right words to explain himself. I didn't mean to," he stammered. "I only wanted to help. I wanted to reunite you with your children." The spirit's face contorted in anger, and she let out an eerie, echoing scream. The room seemed to darken, and Alex felt a crushing weight on his chest. He struggled to breathe, his panic rising. But then, the spirit's demeanor changed. She seemed to calm down, and her expression shifted from anger to sadness. In an instant, the room transformed, and Alex found himself standing in a different place, a place from the spirit's past. He was in a small, dilapidated house, surrounded by flames. The heat was unbearable, and the cries of children filled the air. It was the night of the fire, the night that had forever changed the donkey lady's life. Alex watched in horror as the events unfolded before him. He saw the spirit, once a loving mother, desperately trying to save her children from the inferno. He felt her pain, her helplessness, her sorrow. Tears welled up in Alex's eyes as he witnessed the tragedy that had befallen the donkey lady. He understood now. He understood why she had become vengeful, why she had lashed out. She had been consumed by grief, by the injustice of her fate. "I'm so sorry," Alex whispered, his voice filled with remorse. "I had no idea. I didn't understand your pain." The spirit's face softened, and she nodded slowly. She seemed to accept his apology, and the room shifted once again, returning to his bedroom. As Alex stood there, face to face with the spirit, he knew that he couldn't undo the past. He couldn't change what had happened to her and her children. But he could offer her something she had been denied for so long: compassion and understanding. "Is there anything I can do to help you find peace?" Alex asked, his voice filled with sincerity. The spirit hesitated for a moment, and then she nodded again. She reached out a ghostly hand and placed it on Alex's shoulder. He felt a rush of cold energy, but it wasn't menacing. It was a touch of forgiveness. "I forgive you," she whispered, her voice no longer filled with anger. "And I thank you for trying to help me." With those words, the spirit began to fade away, her form dissipating like smoke in the wind. Alex watched as she disappeared, feeling a sense of closure and relief wash over him. As he lay down in his bed, he knew that the encounter had changed him. He had gained a deeper understanding of the donkey lady's pain, and he had learned the power of compassion and forgiveness. It was a lesson he would carry with him for the rest of his life, a reminder that every soul, whether living or departed, had a story worth telling and a pain worth acknowledging. Chapter 8. The reunion. For days, Alex had searched tirelessly, following the clues he had gathered to locate the new burial site of the donkey lady's children. He had encountered obstacles, faced strange occurrences, and overcome his own fears, but he was determined to see his promise through. Finally, after a long and arduous journey, he stood before the graves of the children once more. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting a soft, ethereal glow over the cemetery. The headstones of the children stood before him, bathed in moonlight. It was a serene and tranquil night, a stark contrast to the horrors of the past. Alex had brought with him candles, incense, and other items he had collected for the ritual. He lit the candles, their flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the ground. He placed them around the graves in a circle, forming a sacred space. The air was still, and the atmosphere was charged with a sense of anticipation. Kneeling before the graves, Alex closed his eyes and began to recite the words he had learned, words meant to bridge the gap between the living and the departed. He called upon the spirits of the children, inviting them to join him, to reunite with their mother. As he chanted, a gentle breeze stirred, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. The atmosphere grew heavy with energy, and Alex could feel the presence of the children. They were here, watching, waiting. And then, it happened. A soft, melodic hum filled the air, growing louder and more pronounced. Alex opened his eyes, and before him, he saw the apparitions of 3 children, their forms bathed in a soft, shimmering light. They were no longer lost souls. They were free. Tears welled up in Alex's eyes as he gazed upon the spirits of the children. They were reunited at last, their faces filled with joy and love. They reached out to each other, holding hands and embracing, their laughter filling the night. But there was one more presence that Alex sensed, a familiar presence. He turned, and there she stood, the donkey lady. But she was no longer a distorted, vengeful spirit. She had transformed into her former self, a loving mother with a gentle smile on her face. The children rushed to her, and they embraced in a tearful reunion. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated love, a reunion that had been denied to them for far too long. Alex watched in awe and wonder, his heart filled with gratitude that he had been able to make this moment possible. As the spirits of the family reunited, they turned to Alex, their eyes filled with gratitude. The donkey lady spoke, her voice soft and filled with emotion. "Thank you," she whispered, her words carrying the weight of centuries. "You have given us the gift of reunion, of closure. We can finally be at peace." Tears streamed down Alex's cheeks as he nodded. "It was the least I could do," he replied, his voice choked with emotion. "You deserve to be together, to find peace and happiness." The spirits of the family began to fade, their forms becoming translucent, their laughter and voices growing faint. They were returning to the other side, to a place of eternal peace and love. As they disappeared, the donkey lady turned to Alex one last time, her smile filled with gratitude. "You have a kind heart," she said. "Remember that every soul has a story worth telling, and every act of compassion can make a difference." With those words, she too faded away, leaving Alex standing alone in the moonlit cemetery. The weight of the encounter, the journey, and the reunion hung in the air, and he knew that he had been a part of something profound, something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. As he made his way back to town, he carried with him the lessons he had learned, the power of compassion, the importance of understanding, and the belief that every soul, no matter how troubled, deserved a chance at peace. And he knew that the story of the donkey lady and her children would live on, a reminder that even in the darkest of tales, there could be a glimmer of hope and redemption. Chapter 9. The aftermath. Months had passed since Alex's encounter with the donkey lady and the heartfelt reunion of her family's spirits. The events of that fateful night had left a lasting impression on him, transforming him in ways he could never have anticipated. Now, as he stood on the familiar Donkey Lady Bridge on Applewhite Road, he felt a profound sense of peace. The moon hung low in the night sky, casting a soft, silver glow over the surrounding landscape. The once eerie cries and haunting hoof-like footsteps that had echoed around the bridge were no longer heard. The oppressive atmosphere that had gripped this place had dissipated, replaced by a tranquility that seemed to flow from the very heart of the bridge. Alex closed his eyes and breathed in the cool night air. He could feel it. The presence of the spirits was no longer one of sorrow and pain, but of serenity and gratitude. The donkey lady and her children had found their peace, and the bridge that had been haunted for so long was now a place of solace. As he stood there, a car passed by on the nearby road, its headlights casting long shadows. The driver, a local resident, looked out at the bridge and then back at the road, a sense of curiosity and wonder in their eyes. The change in the atmosphere around Applewhite Road had not gone unnoticed by the town's inhabitants. Word had spread, whispers and stories passed from person to person, and slowly but surely, the legend of the Donkey Lady began to evolve. No longer was she seen as a malevolent spirit seeking vengeance. Instead, she became a symbol of resilience, a mother's undying love, and a family's reunion across the boundaries of life and death. It was in this atmosphere of transformation and newfound peace that Alex made a decision. He would write a book about his experiences, about the Donkey Lady, her family, and the journey that had unfolded. He wanted to share their story with the world, to honor their memory and the lessons he had learned. In the months that followed, Alex dedicated himself to his writing. He poured his heart and soul into the book, detailing every aspect of his journey: the skepticism, the fear, the determination, and the ultimate redemption. He included the rituals, the encounters, and the profound moments of connection. The book, titled The Legend of the Donkey Lady, A Tale of Redemption and Reunion, became a local sensation. It was embraced by the town, and soon, it found its way into the hands of readers far and wide. Alex's story resonated with people, reminding them of the power of compassion and the importance of understanding the stories of the past. As time passed, the legend of the Donkey Lady took on a life of its own. People began visiting the bridge, not out of fear, but out of respect. They left flowers and tokens of remembrance, paying their respects to the spirits who had found peace. The atmosphere around Applewhite Road had shifted, and the bridge was now a symbol of hope and reconciliation. Alex, once a skeptic, had become a local hero. He was celebrated for his courage, his compassion, and his dedication to preserving the memory of the Donkey Lady and her family. The town erected a small plaque on the bridge in his honor, a testament to his role in the transformation of the legend. As the years passed, the story of the Donkey Lady continued to be told, passed down from generation to generation. It became more than just a local legend. It became a story of resilience, redemption, and the enduring power of love. And through it all, Alex knew that he had played a part in that legacy. He had been touched by the supernatural, had faced his own fears, and had emerged from the darkness with a deeper understanding of the human spirit. The Donkey Lady had taught him that every soul, whether living or departed, had a story worth telling, and he had made sure that their story would live on for generations to come. Chapter 10. The legacy years had passed since Alex had first encountered the Donkey Lady and embarked on a journey that had transformed him. He had written his book, The Legend of the Donkey Lady, A Tale of Redemption and Reunion, and it had become a bestseller. The story had resonated with readers around the world, touching their hearts and inspiring them with its message of compassion and understanding. As the book gained popularity, tourists began to flock to the Donkey Lady Bridge on Applewhite Road, hoping to catch a glimpse of the legendary spirit. The once deserted bridge had become a place of pilgrimage, a site where people sought to connect with the supernatural and experience the legacy of the Donkey Lady for themselves. The town of San Antonio fully embraced the legend, recognizing its significance in the community's history. Annual events were held in honor of the Donkey Lady, including storytelling nights, lantern-lit tours of the bridge, and art exhibitions that celebrated her story. The legend had become an integral part of the town's identity, a reminder of the power of redemption and the enduring nature of love. Amidst this transformation, Alex had found a new calling. He had become a renowned paranormal investigator, dedicating his life to exploring the mysteries of the supernatural. His journey with the donkey lady had sparked a passion within him, and he sought to understand and document the stories of other restless spirits. His reputation grew as he investigated haunted houses, explored eerie forests, and delved into the mysteries of abandoned places. Alex approached each case with the same compassion and determination that had guided him on his first encounter with the donkey lady. He believed that every spirit, no matter how troubled, deserved to have their story told and their pain acknowledged. One evening, as Alex was going through his mail, he came across a letter that caught his attention. It was from a stranger, someone he had never met. The letter was handwritten and filled with a sense of urgency. "Dear Mr. Alex," it began, "I hope this letter finds you well. I have heard of your expertise in paranormal investigations and your unique ability to connect with spirits. I am writing to seek your help with a haunting that has plagued my family for generations. We are in desperate need of assistance, and I believe you may be our only hope." Alex read the letter carefully, and as he reached the end, he knew that his journey was far from over. The legacy of the donkey lady had opened doors to new adventures, new mysteries, and new spirits in need of help. With a determined look in his eyes, Alex picked up the phone, ready to embark on another journey into the world of the supernatural. He knew that there were countless stories waiting to be told, countless souls seeking peace, and he was prepared to face each one with the same compassion and understanding that had defined his path from the very beginning. And so, the story of Alex, the paranormal investigator, continued, a legacy born from the encounter with the donkey lady, a reminder that every soul, no matter how troubled or restless, deserved a chance at peace and redemption. We hope you have enjoyed our paranormal Donkey Lady Bridge haunting in Texas as a scary story. Please visit us at Paranormal Untold Stories. Come to listen to more of our scary stories collection. Paranormal Untold Stories encourages you to contact us if you have your own untold story that you would like our professionals team to put online as a scary story. Thank you. Please follow our YouTube channel, Paranormal Untold Stories, and encourage others to do the same. Paranormal Untold Stories.